Happy Tuesday and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And Jim, we're diving right back into, after blowing up Zeppelins yesterday,
Let's have breakfast, yeah.
Yes, exactly. What have you done before breakfast? Well, going into minute 102, and we're into into the coda of the whole thing. PV and PV sitting there. We're back in the Bulldog. This is the first time we really see the Bulldog during the day. I tend to think of all the other earlier scenes as nighttime.
Yeah, they're pretty much generally a nighttime thing,
and dinner
or evening. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. We're just watching, they're just coming in. And apparently Jenny didn't get her way. It's like let's go someplace else. Well, no, they're going to go back to the Bulldog.
We're right there back at the Bulldog. And I don't think we see what she's eating because there's no soup.
Yeah. And I noticed that she is wearing kind of a light tomato-colored dress. And,
that's true. That could have been white, this morning and doused in tomato soup. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, she is wearing, and later on, when we switch to the outdoor scene, we get a good view of her skirt, which is actually tomato-colored.
Right.
So this is her. I think she's the one with the most changes. She has. If we go over how many different things she wears, she had. There was an original when she was first getting dressed. She had her going out to the movies. That's her A costume. Then she had her Saxon princess costume, and then she had her white dress, the South Seas Club. I don't think the negligee actually counts. So that would be 4, and this would be outfit number 5. She has, I think, of all the people that are out there, she has the most coverage.
Right, and Cliff most likely the least. Although we can't. It's not always as obvious when he's got the jacket on, but
yeah.
And it's just fascinating to me that he's sitting there just if this is breakfast or lunch, taking it easy at the diner, still with the jacket, the double-breasted, everything buttoned most of the way up.
Yeah.
But then again, we know how hard that is to get in and out of.
He's wearing it Captain Kirk in Star Trek II style. He's got the bib kind of half folded down.
Right.
And I just saw the revival edition of Star Trek II last night. And so this is much on my mind, but I never realized the Star Trek look of that bib jacket. So and of course we get as they're discussing the car, the touring. That was a nice car.
That was such a great line that Alan Arkin just reading the totally fake account in the newspaper. He was killed in the tragedy when flaming debris fell on his touring car. That's terrible. That was a nice car. And he gives that little look over the top of his glasses. I just love the guy.
Yeah, he's just having a swell last moment there. Malcolm back in his Bigelow suit. I don't know. I wonder who's paying him now. Who inherited Bigelow's airfield? Maybe Millie did. Who knows?
It could be Millie. I like to think of it as Patsy. I like to think that Patsy's going to be running things from here on out.
Yeah, she's the FBO operator. So,
yeah, exactly.
And we do get one brief scene at second 31 where we get to see that they're mostly just having coffee, it looks like. They're having coffee.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Except for Jenny's going for the orange juice. I guess she saw Millie picking those oranges and thought, I can get fresh squeezed California oranges.
PV has a plate of something by his left elbow that might be...
Toast?
It could be toast. I mean, when I'm frozen right at second 32...
Or a donut?
I could be convinced, it's just a cake donut or a plate full of cake donuts.
Yeah.
So, and so there's Malcolm at the counter, back with his usual gang of airport bums, and then the guy on the end, of course, having a smoke. There's no better way to start the day in 1938 than
all in their usual spots too, Goose and Skeets, and I would have liked to try one of their toasted sandwiches,
especially at those prices.
Yeah, gosh, I don't know I guess FAA wasn't really big on where you could drive your monoplane.
Yeah, at this point it would still have been either the CAA or the CAB, the Civil Aeronautics Authority or Civil Aeronautics Board. We had you had regulations. You had the concept of what we now call a pilot certificate. You had a pilot's license back by this point, but you're right by the airport. Or basically on the airport. You taxi taxi your GB right up to the back door. I think especially if you're Howard Hughes and the FBI works for you.
You can damn well drive up the 101 or whatever.
Exactly.
He's turning there off what we know is the Encino Road. Yeah, pulling it. Now at this point, is he steering with the tail? Would be where he would be. How he would be turning it.
Yeah, so he would have be steering with his feet, and so using the rudder, using propeller blast over the rudder, using differential brakes. And there's my educated guess would be that, at least I know on the replica Hero GB that flew earlier in the film, had what we call sort of a semi-castering tail wheel. So as you push with your right foot, the rudder moves to the right, and the tail wheel there in the back also moves, and vice versa. But you can, if you push far enough, it'll break free and caster, so you can make much tighter turns if you push the pedal all the way. But you'd be using prop blast over the rudder and brakes. In this case, it's really interesting. I don't see a hint of any wires. I don't see any hints of where wires might have been optically painted out. But I'm assuming that there probably were. Now this one is probably taxiable with electric motors in the wheels, because that's not that uncommon, and it's frustrating because I kept wanting to believe that this was somehow the original airplane repainted, but we know they built this full-size mock-up. We know, thinking back to the earliest scenes of the GB at Chaplin Field, the yellow and black one, that there must have been a mock-up in the yellow and black paint as well, because we talk about Goose swinging the prop and starting the engine. I just don't imagine under any circumstances they would have allowed an actor to do that, as convincing as it is. And so this one's got again, probably an electric motor swinging a flat, hopefully fairly harmless prop. But the detail on it is really nice.
Those beautiful guy wires holding the sides of the wings up, and it looks very prototypical. So
yeah, absolutely. And this is basically the same type as the yellow and black one, and so it could stand in for it. Now, in real life, there was only ever one GBZ built, and that was the GBZ Super Sportster, and that was the yellow and black one that's painted, so looks just like the one from the first part of the movie, but instead of Lady Luck, it was the city of Springfield. So, and this one is a very credible, GB style paint job, but doesn't quite replicate, a specific real airplane.
Any idea what the provenance is of that Alpha 73 for the tail number?
Off the top of my head, I don't know if that was ever assigned. Okay. So funnily enough, that N number itself, that registration number, to my knowledge, was never actually issued or anything. When I do see NA73, I think of something a little bit different, and that was the early prototype for the P-51 Mustang, what we call the XP-51, was built by North American Aviation, so their internal designation for it was NA73. So North American Aviation and their 73rd design, it would have been that kind of thing. And that's another airplane that sits in our museum here in Oshkosh. So we've got the oldest P-51 Mustang in existence. Now, there are other variants out there, as it was kind of a parallel development thing where you had some of them going to the British RAF as the A-36 Apache and things like that. But it was built for the British, but when the U.S. was saying, maybe we want one of these as well, and kind of starting this parallel development process, they built 4 prototype P-51s, and we have one of them sitting there on display.
The configuration of that tail number A, would that be acrobatic?
That's a great question. I'm not sure what that would mean. We normally see we see NR and
it's
NC,
like R for
NR, NC, and X. I'd have to dig into that. Maybe we can touch back on that tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll be seeing a lot more of this little airplane. I never thought of that, the idea of having electric wheels to drive a prop plane around. And
yeah, I know it's been done in other films. Now it could just be wires that are painted out better in this minute than a couple of times we've seen.
Yeah, but if you got room for a battery, I mean, you could just build it like a golf cart and just have some wheels with. And of course, those big the skirts, the spats on those.
The
those
big
wheels
wheel pants. There's plenty of room
to hide stuff.
When I'm trying to figure out when we see that it's Carrie O'Quinn inside. Terry O'Quinn, geez, I'm thinking of somebody else. Terry, whatever. When we see that it's him inside, we're zoomed in tight enough that it could be a stunt person, sort of taxiing a drivable electric motor powered replica, and then it conceivably could be on wires or, who knows what when Terry O'Quinn comes into the scene, or it could just be, they taught him how to do it. They taught him how to drive it. The one thing on this mock-up, and I can't tell if it's probably because he's just already loosened it, but one thing that really jumps out and says, if this is the fully finished mock-up, then the one thing it says to me that it's a mock-up is how sort of loosely that whole canopy cover is fitting on there. Now, he's probably already sort of cracked it open, but you notice those...
Yeah, well, and we also see other hands, too, holding it. There's two other...
Right, but even before that, when he first comes into frame, when we first see Howard Hughes in there, when he's still moving and the engine's, quote-unquote, still running, those gaps around the front of it, that would never work. So I'm guessing it's probably meant to be that he's just loosened it, and because otherwise it would be, it would be ratcheted down, and you wouldn't have a gap like that up front. That would be, it just absolutely wouldn't work at 300 miles an hour.
Non-viable, yeah. Quite a blast over the dashboard. But I like the yellow paint scheme, but I really enjoy this black and white.
It's beautiful.
The high contrast.
And you could see this one for quite a few years on the backlot tour at Disney MGM. And I think we've since heard that it's not there anymore, but it's been a long time since I've been out that way.
And poor Howard Hughes doesn't get a second suit. That's the same suit he was wearing. I guess he and Cliff are, of a type. They're both pilots, and they don't have time to change.
I love his sort of...
It's like a windbreaker thing?
Yeah, this flight jacket thing that sort of goes over the top. And, of course, he's wearing goggles, even with the canopy. But
yeah.
It's...
Because, who wants to see that much?
Right, exactly. You already can't see anything out of the GB, so why not restrict the visibility even further?
He is bulletproof now, so he can, he doesn't have to worry about oil seeping in through the canopy.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned bulletproof. When the original Model Z crashed after it had a couple of seasons of racing under its belt and been upgraded with bigger engines and things like this. The speculation, at least at the time, and I think is somewhat generally accepted, was that the fuel cap had come off and come through the windscreen and punched through that front windscreen and incapacitated the pilot and then crashed. And that was the Z was the one that sort of started that horrible reputation, saying these GBs are dangerous and they're killers and things. And so you say bulletproof. So when they built the R1 and the R2, the follow-ons to the Model Z, the term that they used even at the time was that those windscreens would be bulletproof, so that nothing would come through there. And so they,
thicker plexiglass that made it probably even harder to see through.
Right, exactly. So, but built to do just one thing and just go fast. And as we're recording this, here in September of 2017, for those that are listening 100 years from now, orbiting Jupiter, a guy named Steve Hinton Jr., whose dad flew the GB and some other airplanes in this film. So Steve Jr. just set the piston engine powered speed record in a highly modified P-51. As we're recording, that was about a week ago, and his top speed on these runs in this P-51 were one of them was 551 miles an hour.
Wow,
which is just
Mach 0.8.
Yeah, it's right up there. It's just staggering to think in a piston engine airplane, but it's also interesting to think here in 2017. We're flying a piston engine airplane at 551, which is jaw dropping. 80 years ago, guys flying GBs were hitting 300. Yeah. And that was 20 years after the Wright brothers. So interesting to see how piston technology has. It's not so there's not still plenty of growth left in it, but if you're just going purely for speed, that growth curve flattened out quite a bit in the last 80 years.
Yeah, well, they're starting to work against the limits of the design, the very limits of the design.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. By the late 30s, people were starting to think about jets and moving in that direction.
Entirely different topic. I'm really impressed by Howard Hughes' ability to remember people's names. He gets out. I don't think he said one word ever to Jenny Blake. As far as I can recall, they've never met.
You're right.
I guess when she was climbing up the ladder, perhaps on the auto gyro.
Sure, but that's not really the time to shake hands.
Yeah,
Say,
That's another thing that we never went over. well, I mean, besides the ridiculousness of jumping on a ladder,
True.
how do you get down, and where do they sit, and where, how,
Right.
how do you even get in, where did they go? Did they go back to Chaplin Field? Did they go back to Hughes? Did they go back to Hughes's field at Santa Monica, or
do they just set them on the ground in the nearest point possible? I always assumed we're sort of meant to think of what we would do in a proper helicopter, where you're hanging underneath, and then just lower you gently to the ground and off the ladder, which really I think we've discussed a bit here and there. Really wouldn't work in an autogyro.
Yeah.
An autogyro doesn't have power to its main rotor. It can't just sit there and hover over a spot. Setting aside the fact that all that weight on the end of that, even though it's right on the center of gravity, swinging on the end of that long arm, that autogyro with Hughes and Peavey already in it is already pretty much at maximum gross weight. So adding another
300
pounds, something like that, for the ladder and big strapping Billy Campbell and Jennifer Connelly at the end there. Just not convinced it could do it. If they were somehow hanging on the wings right inboard, an aircraft like that can usually do a lot better. There's a big safety margin built in, usually carry more than its gross weight, but I just don't see that happening. So
again, it's from the laboratories of Hughes Aircraft. So he might be working on a very high lift craft that we just didn't realize.
Exactly, and he's just using a Pitcairn PCA-2 to test it out.
Yeah, it's his Sikorsky killer.
Exactly. Yes. As we've seen, we don't have to forgive this movie much, and I will forgive it anything.
I recall many years ago going to an Armed Forces Day demonstration at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland, and they had all the different services coming and showing their different techniques. And one of them was they had a Chinook helicopter come in and pick up a squad of Marines who were on the ground, and they tie themselves off on a rope. And the helicopter came in. They tied themselves off and took off, and you just saw them hanging like so much like a macaroni necklace. They were just kind of hanging up the side. And then they said they were flying off to Quantico, and I'm just picturing, I guess it's just a kind of a messy landing because you can't really haul them all in. And
right, yeah, you would just lower down and gently set them on the ground, that's always, like I said, that's what I kind of thought we were supposed to imagine would have happened with the autogyro once it pulled away and got him somewhere safe. But
from what I understood from another Marine who was watching it, he said that their horizontal velocity is a little bit high, and it's not a very pretty sight when you're watching them come in, and it's just kind of plus the twin prop wash. So as they're trying to the D-ring thing that they have to pull off to get out, so they all basically kind of flop down on the grass as the prop wash blows over them, and they just kind of roll off into the edges of the field.
I would think that there would be bus service between Andrews and Quantico. Like there might be a better way to get there.
Yeah,
than hanging underneath.
All for the general public. Yeah.
Exactly. Here's a quick question for you. Let me scrub back to it here. As Hughes hops out of the airplane, this last few seconds of this minute, toward the right side of the frame, basically behind Jenny's head, off in the background, there's a building. Is there a sign on the roof of the building? And if so, can you what that says? You could tell me it said Gilbert or something, and I would believe that, but
it doesn't say Chaplin Field. Is that not the?
It might. That might be a Chaplin Field sign.
Yeah, I think there's a sign on Encino Road. It's on the left-hand side of the intersection, and it'll say Chaplin Field with an arrow below that.
So what I'm looking at, the illusion is anyway that it's right on the roof of a building, though, like it would be. But that might actually just be Chaplin Field, and the whole thing might be an arrow.
It's, that sign has gotten me before in the past. So I was staring at it and going, what could it be? Way in the back.
Way in the background. Yeah.
Oh, I'm seeing the green. There's a green sign to the left in about second 47. A car passes in front of a green sign that says Chaplin Field.
I'm in the high 50s.
Yeah.
Just off of Jenny's shoulder.
Garage, is it? Or is it
that
garage?
could be. It could be garage. Yeah, there's some cars parked out front there.
Garage. Way down the.
And it's amazing too. You look down all the way that far, and I can't make out the particular make or model of a car, but I can tell that it's period appropriate. Yeah. And it's just a blurry smudge way off in the distance, but it was important enough to to keep that in. And
just little touches like those Federal Highway Association styled bridges. I recognize the architecture of that bridge that's in the far distance on the other side of the intersection next to the light. Just little pieces of this, and this is all Valencia, so we're not in or nowhere near Santa Maria, but finding a similar site with all the eucalyptus trees in the background. Definitely, super Californian.
Oh, and I can smell those eucalyptus trees. We had them lining or right at the end of our driveway. I had huge ones when I was a kid in California. Always sends me back. So no spoilers, but in an upcoming episode, we talk about this whole closing scene and how there appears in one shot to be a stand-in for beloved character actress Margot Martindale.
Yes.
But here at second...
That's definitely her.
This is definitely her when we see her walking in a frame at second 52, 51 or so as Hughes is getting out. So she's walking up, so it's really her, but then we see... It's either
3 regulars.
Yeah, it's either in a later shot we see what's either her or excuse me, somebody that's either standing in to be her or somebody who just happens to be wearing her same outfit.
Yeah, I can't imagine 2 women having that triangular piping on the sleeves. That would not seem to make too much sense. Unless there was a sale, maybe, and they had the same dress, and everybody in the style wanted that this week.
It's funny too. Looking around this scene, there's totally people walking around, sort of admiring the airplane. There's a guy in the distant background taking a couple of snapshots of Hughes climbing out of it and everything. There's sort of a man in black milling around in the background off to the right of the frame. But then there's a guy it just looks like he might be somebody because there's a guy, he's in this blue shirt.
Well, the guy in black is the one that's later going to have some interaction with the aircraft to peel the sticker
right.
off.
He's the sticker peeler.
So he's one of Hughes's men.
He's a Hughes guy.
And the guy taking the snapshots, I was just wondering if that's a Leica camera. It looks kind of like a 35 millimeter. The way he's holding it is kind of it's not like a Brownie, and it's definitely not like a speed graphic.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's
he just
very
seems
small,
to be holding
very compact, and
so I was just wondering if he might be a German spy.
I'm sure that's a very plausible. And Lothar is probably hiding way up in the trees.
Yeah.
He's climbed up there and he's looking down on this whole scene.
Still mad about that bouncing off the Hollywood sign.
Yes, exactly.
He
but
was
then
thinking to himself, that was a nice car.
Right. Exactly. You've got somebody at the right of the frame at the very end who's kind of adjusting his great leather flyboy jacket, and he's got his aviator shades on, and he's just really kind of upbeat and happy about this whole thing. But then blue shirt guy just sort of stands there and stares.
He wanted to be the Rocketeer. He's got the jodhpurs
and the boots,
and the big pants.
He's all ready for it. I think that's what it was. Or he wishes Howard Hughes would just, give him a new airplane too.
I didn't get a plane.
Well, wait, we don't.
But
spoilers. We don't know if that's. We don't know what's happening.
Ahead. That guy must be cold. That guy with the aviator's jacket must be really cold because he's got a shirt. He's got what looks like a leather vest, and then this thing on top of it.
Right.
But
Billy's got his heavy leather jacket. Howard Hughes has his flight jacket over his suit and everything else, and Jenny's just in shirt sleeves.
Yeah, she's a tough gal.
Yeah, she is. And somewhere the ghost of Neville Sinclair is saying, I prefer you this way.
Yeah. All in all, a great minute. I think this is one good thing after another is going to be happening on this week, even though this is coming up on our final week.
Right.
Great way to end the series. We will be having some more discussions about this tomorrow, and I'm not even going to tell you who the guests are coming up. So you're gonna have to keep tuning in and finding out who we have. But we do have some interesting.
And that's not because we don't know. Okay, let's be clear about that.
No, they all promise, and they'll be here, and really, so we'll see. But it's all happening. But thanks for joining us here each and every week. This has been a lot of fun hearing from everybody, and it just gets better and better. And as I said yesterday, we may have some more episodes post credits, post everything. There might be a post credit sequence, even if the movie. We may have to go over the FBI warning and the.
Right.
But we have some more people coming, so we'll see how that goes. But here, please, if you'd like to reach out to us on social media, do so at all the usual spots: Twitter, Airport. I wasn't going to do that anymore. Twitter, Rocketeer Minute. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute. Find us at the big site, rocketeerminute.com. And you can still sign up for us. Go to iTunes or Google Play, type in Rocketeer Minute, and hit subscribe, and you can still get these remaining episodes. Gosh, a week to go. So get in there and make sure that you're still getting us hot and fresh every morning. We'll join you here tomorrow as we continue to watch all the good news on this sunny Sunday morning in Los Angeles. It's in the case of the movie. We'll join you here tomorrow on the Rocketeer Minute. So until next time, over and out.